It's great for me to catch up on what I've missed because I can never read the papers during the week, well, except on Tuesday.
Celebrity interviews.
I get some big names. Absolutely cram full of words. I mean, not just any old words, but words like eponymous.
Jenny Murray.
It's very dry, and I like that.
I don't read anything on a Sunday. I'm a Presbyterian. Or Threnody, for instance.
In the supplement, not the main supplement, the secondary supplement, they have a section, and inside that there's a pull-out bit, and at the back of that there are these bits you can cut out and keep. They've stopped doing it now, but it used to be really good.
Or, disingenuous.
It's how I first heard about that sun-dried tomato scare. I mean, that saved my life.
Too much stuff about Switzerland.
Or paradigm. In many ways, it's my best friend.
Contents page.
Tekken Liberties. Stephen Griswold asks, has the new computer game Tekken 3 become a metaphor for diplomatic relations in the wake of recent global events? Pages 40 to 58.
Herder on the Orient Express. Janice Polt investigates why more and more Muslim and Hindu women are travelling by train. Pages 15 to 22.
My first second home. This week, Cilla Black. Page 45.
As the decade draws to a close, we continue our look at who's who in the world of classical music. Today we publish our definitive guide to the 10 most influential bassoonists in Britain today.
Flat Snacks. Martin Lestrange on the neglected delights of roadkill cuisine. Page 25.
Rubik's Cuba. This week, puzzle guru Professor Jan Rubik presents his guide to the largest island in the Caribbean. Page 38.
Oxford Dons. Miami Vice star Don Johnson and actor Sir Donald Sinden show us round their favourite university town. Pages 17 to 22.
Green. The New Orange. Page 13.
Actor Michael Caine talks to Jeff Hunt about his secret hideaway in the lowlands of Spain, where he relaxes, swims, grows his own aubergines and gets involved in the occasional fight. The Caine in Spain brawls mainly on the plane.
How to have a nice bath.
How to have a nice bath.
The bath is now well established as a domestic tradition in these islands. Folk wisdom and scientists alike consider it an excellent way of relaxing and getting rid of dirt. But how many of us really understand how to get the best out of it? Here are some essential do's and don'ts.
Bathtub.
Bathtubs can be made of various different materials. The best ones are made of impermeable materials, which means they hold water without leaking. Be sure to check that your tub is made of an impermeable material, e.g. iron, steel, plastic. Do not buy a non-impermeable or permeable tub, however enthusiastic the salesman sounds. You will regret it later. Bath prices vary enormously, but for a good-sized, hard-wearing, reliable tub made of zircon-encrusted Teflon, as used on the Space Shuttle, contact Partiger and Partridge, Bond Street.
Above left.
Prices start at £8,000.
Water.
It is important to fill the bath with water. Generally speaking, the water should be warm, hence the proverb, a nice warm bath. For warm water, run both the hot and the cold taps. Any kind of water will do, and for a list of local suppliers, consult Yellow Pages.
As the millennium approaches,
10 things you must do to prepare for the millennium.
Stockpile supplies of tinned food and dried wheat.
Withdraw all your cash from the bank and convert it into gold.
Cancel any flights you had planned.
Bury all computer equipment underground in lead-lined cases.
Unplug all toasters.
Start wearing rubber-soled shoes.
Buy a canary.
Get a spacesuit.
Eat lots of fibre.
Buy a hat.
Stop smoking.
Start living underground but away from buried computers.
Plug.
The plug allows the water to remain in the bath and can be removed afterwards to let the water escape.
Plumbing.
Before use, your bath will have to be plumbed in. Basically, in lay terms, this means having all the pipes connected.
clockwise from top left.
Again, consult Yellow Pages. If at all possible, employ a plumber from Rome. The call-out charge may be slightly higher, but the bath was of course invented in Rome, and those extra 1,000 years of experience make a call to a local tradesman of false economy.
Next week, the towel. Semiotics, function and fashion statement.
Sell-by data.
This week's panel: A.S. Byatt, novelist; Alan Bennett, playwright; Frankie Taylor, convicted murderer and 60s gangster icon. With the arrival of the millennium looking more likely by the day, we ask our panel to cast a critical eye over the perfect cure for the biggest hangover in history: mineral water.
Maigre Aqua Mineral, with added pineapple zest. £6.99 a litre.
A.S. Byatt.
Yes, charming yet robust. A very good example of this particular genre. It quenches the thirst but doesn't outstay its welcome. And at £6.99 it won't hurt the pocket.
Alan Bennett.
It reminded me of when I was working as a young actor touring in Morocco. They were unhappy times, so I didn't like it.
Frankie Taylor.
Not my sort of thing, really, but it stood up for itself, demanded respect. I like that in a water.
Tesco Value Water, 99p a litre.
A.S. Byatt.
I must admit I was sceptical at first. How can anyone produce good water at that sort of price? I was worried that it might be a bit too thin, a bit too watery, if you like. And it was, but this was redeemed in part by a certain impudent tenacity. It had a bold ordinariness about it that was hard to dislike. Overall, though, a bit bland.
Alan Bennett.
This reminded me of my first visit to New Zealand. Happy times, so I liked it. Could have done with a slightly higher pH value, perhaps.
Frankie Taylor.
Well, what can you say? It's water like your mother used to make. I wouldn't have a whole bottle, but then I'm more of a tea drinker anyway. Rumble in the jumble.
From the outside, French designer and architect Serge Ronsard might seem to have a perfect life. Houses on 7 continents, he invented and built a huge floating island and positioned it on the geographical border between Australasia and Polynesia, which is technically in an international no man's land.
As the millennium approaches,
His wife, nuclear physicist and French film actress Nathalie Dubellay, has been voted the world's sexiest woman on no less than 34 separate occasions. But suddenly, everything changed. He spoke to Gordon Thoth.
It was one day in the summer. I was in Provence with Nathalie in our house there, having a very nice lunch, and the weather was very beautiful. The food was very beautiful, and the house is very beautiful. My wife is very beautiful. And one of my guests asked me, Serge, but are you truly happy? And it was like a thunderbolt, a slap in the face. Yes, because this is a question I have never asked myself. When this man asked me the question, I suddenly created my own existence, this duality of happy, unhappy. And it made me very, very angry. It was, yes, as if I had been driven from the Garden of Eden. I was very, very angry with this man. I say, he is a serpent, I throw bread at him. I push him in my swimming pool. Then, of course, I apologized.
On your doorstep, each week one of our top lifestyle writers takes a trip to an overlooked part of Britain. This week, Arabella Bishop visits Spume in South Wales.
So anyway, I contemplate the situation. I discover a solution. I think to myself, I will abolish the concept of happiness, destroy it completely. I will not even say the word. This way, the concept of can eventually, over time, be removed from the human brain, and then we can all become truly content. So, to abolish the word, I have written a new dictionary of the French language without the word in it. It will be my legacy, my gift to the world. Santé.
Serge Ronsard's Dictionnaire de la langue française sans le mot bonheur can be ordered through the internet at www.foliesberserk.com. Price €7,000.
Royston's traditional Old English sparkling isotonic aqua spume. £12.99 per 330 centilitres.
A.S. Byatt.
Exquisite. It's the sort of water that really repays repeated sittings. Every mouthful reveals new layers of taste meaning, new frissons of complexity. Echoes of English water through the ages. This drink has real history in it, and the effervescence is judged to perfection. Surely this is what Keats was referring to when he talked of bubbles winking at the brim.
Alan Bennett.
I found this water utterly obnoxious. Perhaps I'm a Philistine, but I felt it simply had too many bubbles. It was trying hard to impress, like an overeager puppy.
Frankie Taylor.
To me, sparkling water is wrong. Like punching a lady. Simple as that. No one on my manor drinks it. It made me really angry drinking this stuff. Nice colour bottle, though.
Next week, David Thewlis, Ivana Trump and Jermaine Greer compare tomatoes.
the week ahead, in full on television in brief.
Saturday, ITV 7:45. Celebrity stars in their eyes. Some are still not convinced, which is a shame because the show's beautifully judged sense of retro kitsch irony makes it one of the postmodernist pleasures of the age. What a friend described as Blind Date meets the Velvet Underground on acid for the millennium. This week, Sir David Attenborough is Elaine Page.
Weekdays, 10:40, BBC 2, Celebrity News Night. Tonight's news headlines are read by Denise Van Outen. Van Outen was once regarded as something of a media lightweight, but not anymore. Her long stint on The Big Breakfast proves she has a natural rapport with what Godard called le caméra. Her handling of a tricky live interview with Yasser Arafat was particularly impressive. Watch this space.
Sunday, 5:30, BBC One.
Pro-celebrity weather. This week it's the turn of father and daughter team Bobby and Suzanne Charlton. Quite an exciting prospect, this one. Their different styles of delivery make for an interesting contrast too. Charlton Jr. is precision personified, while Bobby's approach is reminiscent of his footballing heyday, muscular and expansive. Set the video.
Saturday, ITV 7:45.
Pro-celebrity match of the day. Highlights of today's actions include Manchester United versus Ready Steady Cook and Arsenal's clash with the cast of Vanity Fair. Anything present...
Celebrity interview.
I sit meditating on my English teacher, who predicted I was too pretentious and too self-obsessed ever to make a living as a writer of fiction. Meditating on my classmates who mocked me for a variety of reasons. And as I meditate, I smile wryly. For in this age of international sex symbols, I am about to interview the greatest sex symbol. And neither my classmates nor my English teacher will ever meet her. And I smile wryly once more. It's a female sex symbol, obviously. Tessellated shadows and chinks of sunlight
Above right.
rippled by the palm leaves playing in the gentle breeze, dance on the tiles around the fountain, and the spraying water glints in the sun as I sip my mint tea in the merciful bower, which is the terrace of the Mamounia Hotel in Marrakesh.
Above left.
Rainy London seems another world as I gaze into the cloudless blue of the noonday sun. I think of Paul Bowles, imagine myself Eric Newby, or find myself weaving a postmodern Graham Greene fantasy around the two mysterious businessmen at the far table. In the distance, the peaks of the Atlas Mountains rise out of the clouds into the sky, which I realise is not as cloudless as I first thought. The Atlas Mountains, where in Greek mythology the eponymous god bore the world upon his back. But I am not concerned with the denizens of Olympus today. My business is with a goddess from another pantheon, that of Hollywood. For I am here to interview.
Crossword. Tabula rasa is on holiday. This week's crossword is set by Bishop Stortford.
Mexican warlord might look twice at the price of potatoes. 7-7.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. 4.
Capital of France. 12.
A Shakespearean actor embroiled in a dispute over broccoli takes flight when a royal penguin makes fun of his bra. In Canada, of course, all is not as it first appears. Or at least that's what the people with pianos instead of fingers tell us. 3.
A musician does his sound check, perhaps. 1-2, 1-2, 3, 4.
Friday, 7:15, Theme Night on BBC Two. A sideways look at the history of theme nights on BBC Two, including archive clips from Yeast Night, Fridge Night and Swiss Night, amongst others.
Saturday, 9:30, BBC One. New chat show hosted by footballer Dennis Bergkamp. At the end of the day, you've got to say it's Dennis Bergkamp.
Sunday, 11:45, Channel 4. The Right Stuff, footballer Ian Wright's literary discussion show. This week, Wrighty asks Jermaine Greer what happens when postmodern post-feminism meets the fin de siècle zeitgeist.
Friday, 7:45, ITV. It'll be all right on the night 4. Another hilarious compilation of howlers and bloopers taken from TV shows featuring footballer Ian Wright.
Sunday, 7:45, ITV. Murder, He Writes. Footballer Ian Wright reprises the role first made famous by Angela Lansbury in classic detective Hokum.
Tuesday.
I can barely utter the name for fear that doing so will wake me from a dream. Can it be true that I, a boy from Kirkcaldy, have really come this far in my career? Flown, all expenses paid, business class from rainy London to mysterious Morocco, to the Mamounia Hotel for an exclusive interview for one of the most prestigious newspapers in the world, to interview one of the world's greatest sex symbols. Can it be that in a few minutes I will be sitting tete-a-tete with, sipping mint tea with, enticing confidences into my tape recorder from Claudia Wilson?
Angus Wilson is on holiday.
Yes, the Claudia Wilson. And here she is, gliding across the terrace, radiant and beautiful in a flowing silk frock.
Top left.
Towards me. Me.
Top right.
The boy who was always picked last at football. Me. The one they called geeky. Me.
10 things to do with your Sundays.
Learn to sculpt.
Grow your own cannabis.
Eat.
Eat out.
Play jazz.
Be French.
Visit Brent Cross.
Wear combat trousers.
Buy an Aga.
Go to church.
Summerfield of Dreams.
In a major study conducted elsewhere in this paper to establish the most 500 people in Britain, see the Now, the new listocracy, Lee Summerfield came in at number 47, ahead of both Tony Blair and Carolina Hearn.
Clockwise above.
Not bad for a Catholic lad, the youngest of 6 children, and, in case you needed to be reminded, the highest paid footballer in the country. Next week sees the publication of his autobiography, It Couldn't Have Went Better, interviewed by Rebecca Clark with an E, caricature by Will Callahan.
4 years ago, on a rainy November night in Milan, it looked as though Lee Summerfield's dazzling, incandescently troubled career was over. Stretchered off the field on a stretcher halfway through the second half of Chelsea's first leg third-round European Cup Winners' Cup match against AC Milan, after what he afterwards referred to as a total moment of mayhem, Summerfield remembers looking down at where his right knee should have been and seeing nothing but a blanket.
At the time, I remember thinking, well, that's it, you know. my knee's gone.
Fortunately for him, the knee hadn't gone. It was still there under the blanket.
At the time, I remember thinking, thank Christ for that,
But when the Chelsea team physio, Don Watson, pulled back the blanket and saw the knee, he simply looked Summerfield in the eye and shook his head very silently from side to side.
At the time, I remember thinking, that's not a good sign. I mean, Donny's not exactly the silent type, he normally gives it plenty of that, but he's pulled back the blanket and he just gives us a look like this.
Top left.
So I knew it wasn't too good.
Summerfield had sustained one of the most serious injuries a footballer can dread to think of. He'd severed 5 of the crucial 8 ligaments,
Clockwise from top left.
which in effect stop the knee from slipping round the back of the calf and down into your sock. It was the latest in a string of high-profile problems to beset the man who'd famously been described by Germaine Greer
Above right.
as a nutcase, and by David Hare
Above left.
as an angel with intelligent feet of clay, a kind of sacrificial lamb sent to us by the gods, and, like Mozart,
Top left.
crippled by the burden of a collective genius we dimly recognise as somehow our own.
There was all the stuff in the press and also the newspapers and that. Some feels this, some feels that, the drink, all with Sonia and that. But all I ever wanted to do, was get out there on the park on a Saturday afternoon with the lads and play.
But his troubled and turbulent personal life...
Clockwise from above right. Happier times. Summerfield with Stephen Fry and Barbara Windsor at the launch of Gilly Goulden's book, How to Smell. Sent off against Newcastle United last March after biting a linesman. Somewhat the worse for wear after an extended night at MASH with Damien Hirst, Denise Van Outen and Salman Rushdie.
Gradually began to occupy more and more tabloid column inches than his heroic feat on the football field, and in particular the troubled relationship with Sonia Holden, the ex-GMTV travel update girl turned table dancer and UN Goodwill ambassador to Southeast Asia.
OK, with Sonia, a lot of what they were saying was just made up. Just to sell newspapers and that. We have rows and get divorced just like normal people. It's part of being married.
10 abbreviations to use in conversation.
Y2K,
RSI,
RBI,
TFI,
HTTP,
WWW,
EJT,
IKEA,
PPF, FWG,
BBFC.
TB.
Angus Wilson is on holiday.
I would never hit a woman, no matter how stupid she was. Like they were saying, I was out pissed at the club on the night when our daughter Bianca was conceived. Just a total fabric of tissues. I mean, that's why I bought the island and that, for some private seat.
It was his purchase of the Isle of Wight 2 years ago and his decision to build an exact replica of the Duke and Duchess of York's 2-acre bungalow at Sunningdale that turned the tabloid obsession with his life into a feeding frenzy of Shakespearean dimensions.
All I want to do is get out on a park on a Saturday afternoon and play.
Like everything else in his larger-than-life life, the story of his battle with alcoholism, one of the main threads running through It Couldn't Have Went Better, has been played out in the full glare of a tabloid culture of which, ironically, Summerfield himself has become the embodiment. The famous press conference a year ago, during which he broke down in tears and had to take his teeth out, has proved to be a major turning point in his life.
Admitting that I had a problem was, the big thing for me, and the treatment's been dead brilliant, because what it is what I discovered is that I had this very low selfish esteem, and I never realised that.
It Couldn't Have Went Better tells the story of a man who took on his private demons and defeated them in a penalty shootout after extra time. This season has seen a gradual transformation in his fortunes, culminating in his recall to the England squad against Portugal and his trademark first-half sending off.
Now, I definitely have, a better sense of who I am, so I can stand up and sit with myself. Very much so.
Suddenly things are going well for Lee Summerfield. Off the field too, it's been a remarkable year, which has seen him host Heavy Petting, ITV's new weekly late-night animal dating show, launch his own range of vegetarian pasta sauces, and attract rave reviews for his cameo performance as a small-time 70s wife-beater in last year's cult British hit film The Dog's Bollocks.
At the end of the day, you have to have the serenity to change the things you can't accept and the wisdom to know the difference.
It Couldn't Have Went Better, with a foreword by Sir Anthony Hopkins, is published by Methuen Books at £16.50.
As the millennium approaches,
I rise to meet her, feel my knees involuntarily tremble, my palms becoming moist. It's like the time I asked Linda Nesbitt if I could buy her a Coke at the Youth Club Disco. But this time, it is different. This time, I am offering mint tea to Claudia Wilson. And this time, the girl will not refuse. We sit. I smile. She smiles back. I begin with small talk. I prefer this subtle, indirect approach, gaining the subject's confidence in a way that I suppose is second nature now. For at this level of journalism, all one's skills must become instinctive. One must, in a sense, become a sensitive, sympathetic ear. Remove one's ego entirely. Yes, that's it. One must somehow achieve the anonymity of the confession box. and just coax gently the intimacies which elevate a mere film plug to a deep and revealing portrait of the person behind the hype. The PR person asks me to stick to the questions on the list. I ignore her and roll my eyes subtly for Claudia only. She replies with a momentary grimace, and I know we are building a rapport.
Some sort of pattern emerging, we hear. 77775777776.
A word, 8.
An obscure word, 13.
A foreign word, 16.
A new word which I have invented, 31.
Stretching credulity, we feel. 15, 3, 12, 7, 76, 9, 102.
12 across.
Repetition, 8. Repetition.
I proceed by asking her whether she found the narrative frame of her new film, casting as it does the Cinderella myth in a gritty, albeit postmodern light, a meretricious attempt to romanticise the seamy realities of prostitution, or whether, in a way, it offered a quasi-religious ray of hope and actually implied, in its own superficially convenient way, that none of us is beyond redemption, even if our system of values can shift through the ages. Claudia Wilson looks at me as if no one has ever spoken to her like this before. She gapes. Yes, gapes. Claudia Wilson is gaping.
Sport. Special offer. Collect the tokens in the sports pages over the next 6 weeks and win a place in England's batting line-up for the forthcoming Test series against Pakistan.
Gaping at this writer. More mint tea arrives. I can smell the envy pouring out of the waiter, and just for a moment I feel smug and self-satisfied. But quickly my attention returns to the table, for I'm about to show Claudia Wilson how to drink mint tea. I explain one should pour it into the cup and back into the pot several times before drinking it, and reflect that, if only for this brief moment, all that extensive travelling I have done was worth it. I notice Claudia cannot now catch my eye. I proceed with another question, elegantly phrased, delicately poised between formality and forwardness. I forget its content now, but Claudia answers it, laconically, after a pause, the oozing from her delicious lips like honey fresh from the comb. I look up at the azure sky and formulate another delicate proposition.
As the millennium draws to a close, we look back at the cultural high points.
This week, the best bands of the last 1,000 years.
Number 1, the Beatles.
Number 2, Radiohead.
Number 3, Jamiroquai.
Number 4, the Stereo MCs.
Number 5, In Spiral Carpets.
Next week, the best films of the last 1,000 years.
And as the millennium draws to a close, we ask, are we sick of hearing about the millennium? Our week-by-week analysis runs every week from this week until the final week of this millennium, featuring Millennium Watch, reports on millennium fatigue, and our complete A to Z listing of every mention of the millennium in the past 7 days. Pull-out section.
Consciousness, indeed the moral and ontological paradigm of a culture. And Claudia Wilson agrees with me. The terrace is fuller now. People maintain a respectful distance, but it is clear the beautiful terrace of this, one of the world's great hotels, at the moment has an attraction greater than its customary shade, for it is where Claudia Wilson is sitting talking to me, and I know that every man on that terrace is wondering who I am, is jealous of me, envies me, wants to be me. Me.
Trousers, the new leggings.
Trousers. Are they the new leggings? Well, it seems they could be. Like leggings, trousers cover the legs and pelvic area, and yet unlike leggings are generally a slightly looser fit, except for tight trousers. They can come in all sorts of fabrics and colours, and indeed prices, from cheap to expensive, depending on where you buy them and how well made they are. Try them as an alternative to skirts or dresses. Trousers can be a good way of disguising a fat bottom, provided you choose a pair that's baggy enough. But why should you? This is 1999. A woman's bottom can be fat, on display, and no one will mock her for it, especially not her best friends.
Clockwise from left. Black linen trousers. Gnocchi and Twig, Covent Garden, $29.99. Black linen trousers. The Fashion Shop, all high streets, $29.99. Black linen trousers. From Trousers, Bristol, $29.99. Black linen trousers. The Kingston Trouser Shop, Richmond, $29.99.
Me, a kid from a comprehensive who has got to hear. I remark on the unreality of it all to Claudia and risk a brief, unguarded smile. She does not return the smile, but her eyes speak volumes. She looks at her PR, who stands up abruptly and hustles an obviously reluctant Wilson away, like a princess from the Arabian Nights being ushered back to the harem by her handmaiden. But it does not matter. I already have my story.
Gig Guide. London. Wednesday, the Warehouse.
Stereofads. Luscious indie musings from the band Hotly Tip to be the next Hotly Tip band. The particular brand of spiky guitar shambling is probably best described as hexagonal, utterly original. There's no one else quite like them, a sort of cross between the Beatles and Oasis.
London.
Thursday, the Royal Albert Hall. The Cuban bell-ringing all-stars. The finest exponents of Latin American bell-ringing there has ever been or ever will be. Take your most comfortable shoes and dance the night away to the infectious, syncopated samba rhythms produced by these bell-ringing giants. Bellissimo.
Regency Jacuzzis. Regency-style home jacuzzis in rich yew wood, mahogany and oak. Visit our showroom.
New culture.
Page 45.
Becoming a journalist, living in a fashionable part of London and going to expensive restaurants, swanky premieres and art galleries, hanging out with famous people and being on the avant-garde edge of every trend going remains the holy grail for everyone alive. But according to the latest statistics, many people in this country are still not working as journalists. Even more disturbingly, the same research shows that millions of people do not have second homes in France or Oxfordshire. In fact, it appears some people don't even have a second home in this country. Well into the second year of the Labour government, these findings reveal that Britain is still a nation of two nations, or four if you count Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Or 8 if you multiply the number of actual nations by 2, which is the number of nations in a metaphorical sense. In a special supplement, we ask the question, has the Blair bubble burst?
Health scare.
As the millennium approaches, we put disease under the microscope spotlight. Week by week, our comprehensive fact file will build into a comprehensive fact file on the illnesses we are most likely to die from in the next 1,000 years, assuming we live that long.
This week, the deadly evatic virus.
What is it?
It's a virus.
More specifically?
As yet, there is very little information available. What we do know is that it affects the human body.
What are the symptoms?
Reported symptoms include sickness, illness, death, and, in extreme cases, prolonged drawn-out death.
What causes it?
As yet, we just don't know.
How is it contracted?
As yet, we just don't know.
Is it a very real threat?
As yet, we just don't know, although all the signs point to that conclusion. The latest scientific research indicates that new drug-resistant microbes could mean the number of epidemics will soon reach epidemic proportions.
How many people have died from the virus so far?
Mercifully, none.
How many will die by the year 3000 if present rates of infection continue?
Somewhere in the region of 50 million, according to the latest scientific research.
And is there anything I can do to avoid infection?
At the moment, the advice of the government's chief medical officer is to avoid contact with dirty or infected countries.
See list opposite.
If it's impossible to avoid travelling to a dirty country, ensure you notify the relevant British Embassy of your visit.
7 days in 7 words.
Monday.
Winds.
Tuesday.
Crash.
Wednesday.
Premiere.
Thursday.
Treaty.
Friday.
Speculation.
Saturday.
Denial.
Sunday.
Confirmation.
The special edition 4-wheel drive Power Ninja. Power steering. Power ABS. Power sunroof. Power tinted windows. Power stereo. Power seats. Are you man enough to tame it?
Pages 40 to 48.
As the millennium approaches,
Umberto Eco discusses his affinity with the crop.
Right. The Sunday Format was written by John Morton, Nick Revell and Tony Roach, and it starred Rebecca Front, Simon Greenall, Tony Gardner, Tracy Ann Oberman, Alice Arnold and Nick Revell.